Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everyone doing today? Welcome to another coffee break chat. I'm your host, James Jackson, he, they pronouns, executive producer, Lightleaf Productions, and I think we have a pretty good show for you today. We'll be talking sailing. Sailing encompasses every people of every lifestyle. We'll talk a little bit about Cassidy Hutchinson, the surprise witness in the January 6th Commission, who testified yesterday. We'll talk about the overturn of Roe v. Wade, school prayer, the school prayer ruling, and we'll talk a little bit about President Obama's quote on affordable housing. Um, all good stuff. And hopefully, shortly, we'll have our special guest, Cubby Altobelli. He is known by his pseudonym Calico Jack, and he uses his skills to be a pirate on the Philadelphia waterfront. I'm doing a little project with him that should be pretty interesting for you guys to take a look at, and hopefully we'll have some fun talking. The quote today, the very nature of sailing is one that encompasses people from around the world and from every lifestyle, is by Judy Pete, the director of BVI Spring Regatta. The BVI's is the islands in the Virgin Islands. And the Spring Regatta is held every year as in the BVI's with sailers, both professional and amateur, who go to BVI's to either race or sail in the regatta. Um, the quote comes from a 2017 article about the spring regatta, and I'm just trying to find it for you real quick. There it is. And the first quote, and poorly titled, "Homosexual crew ready for sailing regatta." This is the BVI News, so I guess their editors aren't great at headlines. But yeah. So in 2017, the sailing crew Trekker Adventures announced that they would be joining the Spring Regatta, and they were in 2017 the first LGBTQ led crew to join the regatta and to be in the BVI regatta. Um, they talked about why they joined the regatta, and the quote was, "Our goal is twofold. First, we want to raise the visibility of the LGBT community in the professional racing community. Second, we want to encourage more LGBTQ individuals to get involved in sailing." Um, yeah, I mean, it is a sport that allows you to join it regardless of your physical or physical abilities as far as most sports are concerned. There's even folks who are just basically on the crew to provide weight to the rail, to keep the boat level as you're sailing. And so there's crew positions for almost anybody for any reason. And if sailing is something that you enjoy, being on the water is something that you enjoy, it's always fun to join a crew and be out there on the water. Um, so let's see here. I was just looking at something. Um, so so some of the testimony from yesterday. Um, from uh, Cassidy Hutchinson was quite eyebrow raising. Um, a little bit of it was possibly, it was what in a normal court would be called hearsay, but is allowed in this particular situation because it's not a normal court. This is a investigation by Congress, and so the evidentiary rules that would exist in court don't apply. At any rate, Cassidy Hutchinson was an aide to the president, um, and worked closely in the inner circle of the White House, of the West Wing, had access to most of the West Wing, and was integral in the decision-making process on several things. Um, so she relayed a story that when when January 6th was happening, apparently the former president decided that he really wanted to go to the Capitol Hill, which is where most of the protests was gathering outside of Congress. And he wanted to address the crowd on Capitol Hill, so much so that he apparently reached for the steering wheel of the Beast. That's the presidential limo, the current presidential limo, and attacked by choking his one of his Secret Service protection detail, and he tried to physically get them to have him go to Capitol Hill, which I don't know. I don't know how truthful that little story is. It seems a little impossible to me. Like, I don't know. I could see Trump being a big baby and throwing a giant temper tantrum, but I'm not sure that it's possible to reach from the back seat of the Beast and get to the front seat or steering wheel. It's a big car, and I think there's a divider in it. But at any rate, so it's an interesting story. But the things that it brings up are that during that story, he apparently said something to the effect that they should get rid of the magnetometers, that's the metal detectors, entering Capitol Hill and allow people to come onto Capitol Hill armed with semi-automatic weapons such as AR-15s, because they weren't there to quote unquote hurt him. But again, this is an interesting narrative, because if he knew that there were people that were armed and wanted to get on Capitol Hill, and he was arguing for them to be allowed on Capitol Hill with arms, then his statements that he made publicly that Antifa was the armed group are obviously just directly a lie. At any rate, I mean, I think we all knew that, but it's evidence to that fact. Looks like we have Cubby on the line. Welcome, Cubby Altobelli. I'm going to bring you on screen. If you would introduce yourself, your pronouns, what it is you do.
My name is Cubby Altobelli, he, him. I'm a Philly area actor, and I'm so sorry to be late.
That's all right. No problem. I mean, hey, well, I didn't get the promo up until like literally this morning. I had a rough night with the baby, but it happens.
That's way better. reason.
Just
I
oversleeping. I mean, that's a plenty good reason for me. That's usually what happens to me.
I just had a rough night with my brain.
Mm, yeah.
It's been colicky lately.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my brain gets colicky every once in a while. I had a cluster migraine the other day, uh,
Oh God.
right before an event that was going to go all day, and that's the worst. Like, when you're like sitting there and like fighting explosions in your head, and then also, like I'm sitting there and I'm going, I have to get shaved. I have to get my clothes pressed, and I can't do any of that right now. I'm gonna have to make it.
That is horrible. For everything my brain does against me, at least it's usually just the preamble. Once I get to the event or anything that I've been dreading, I'm fine.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just the lead up and dealing with it later.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So welcome to the show. Uh, for you, I don't know if you've watched the show before, and for those that are joining us perhaps for the first time, and just a little, I usually throw this reminder or explainer into the pre-show where when I'm talking to guests, but excuse me. So generally we start with a little monologue, which I just did. I just talked about the show. And then I introduce my special guest. That would be you. And then we talk about whatever it is you're here to talk about for 15, 20 minutes. And then we like segue either poorly, which is the more typical for me. I'm not good at segues. Either.
Segues are wasted time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you put all of your effort into a good segue, you're taking time from either the preceding or the coming up topic.
I think that well, so I think that when it works out well, it saves time, but it generally doesn't work out well for me. So because I don't script them, so I don't know. Like this show is entirely unscripted and just off the top of my head, which is why I say a lot, and that's like the worst thing they tell you, in every presentation course or class or whatever. They're like, don't say don't say the filler words, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Just sit silently here while I try and think of the next thing to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is horrifying.
Yeah.
It's very scary, but eventually you'll get to a point where you say the ums silently.
You how do you say silently?
Like it becomes a breath as opposed to a sound.
I see. Okay.
Like you can do that same kind of like, I need to like, because serves a purpose.
It does.
They tell you not to use it, but they don't give you a replacement.
Right. And the purpose is that your audience or whoever you're speaking with needs to know that you're still alive.
Right. It also, I mean, like I find it helps me change how I'm thinking. If I like it does something for in here. And public speaking coaches should be more forgiving of the word
Well, speaking of public speaking, that's a lot of what you do for a living. In relatively small groups usually, as far as I understand, but every once in a while you have a large group.
I do a lot of what I like to call illegitimate theater. Stuff on the fringes, hard to define, and also murder mysteries.
Murder mysteries definitely illegitimate theater. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I like a good murder mystery. I like a good murder mystery story. I'm a big fan of Agatha Christie. You know, I've read every Poirot book several dozen times, and I have the DVD collection of all the PBS. Well, I guess BBC really produced the Poirot series with David Suchet. But
Oh yeah, he was in. I love that series.
he's like the best Poirot ever. There's
Yeah,
the new ones that are being produced right now, and I'm just like, eh.
honestly, it's unsurprising that it's what's his name, Kenneth Branagh, because who else would have the arrogance?
To approach David Suchet's
Yeah,
portrayal. I don't know. I mean,
because it's one of those things like, what are you gonna do, a David Suchet impression?
because
It's
he is Poirot for like an entire generation and a half. He is Poirot.
yeah, that's like why they had to wait till the BBC guy died before they could start making Sherlock movies.
Right.
Because there was no point competing.
Right.
It was like, Sherlock's just on TV because we're not going to do better than that guy.
Well, what they should do is so I don't know how much of a fan of James Bond you are, but there's all the fandom answers to why James Bond is a different actor in every movie, or like is an actor is one particular actor for a series of movies, and then he's a different actor. And the fan theory is always like, you know, well, he's a secret agent and James Bond is a code name. It's not his real name. So, like, anybody who joins MI6 could become James Bond 007. But really, what happens is James Bond dies off screen between movies and retires and gets replaced by the next actor who is the new 007.
Yeah.
Which is
we only see the successes.
right. I like that theory actually. I wish they would like do one of the James Bond movies where he does like get replaced like in the middle of the movie, but that would be cool. Just like see an impossible to escape situation, and then the next scene it's just a different actor playing James Bond, and you have no idea why. It just picks up, like the narrative just continues. Like there's no acknowledgement. It's just another James Bond steps in.
Yeah. Well, I like the additional theory that James Bond is a type of retirement. That the whole role of the James Bond is that you're the distraction. That's why you're always making obvious moves and like betting against the supervillain in the casino, because they're just to distract the main bad guys while everyone else does the actual work.
Oh.
So you basically have your most self-destructive agents who become James Bond, and because you don't really have a long retirement in a job like that.
Right. Because somebody's going to come after you.
But yeah, they should have another movie with like 6 James Bonds in it. Only this time it's actually a James Bond movie and not Casino Royale.
So the reason why I brought up that is because I think David Suchet should participate in a cameo in the current Poirot series.
Ooh. Oh, I mean, like always. I love cheesy fan service cameos like that.
Yeah.
Even if he has to, like, I can understand if he doesn't want to do it because it's Branagh.
Do you think the animosity would be that great? Just between the two?
I mean, I don't know a lot about Kenneth Branagh, but I know he cheated on Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
And How?
I mean, what's the famous quote? The heart wants what it wants, I guess.
I guess there's also just no satisfying some people.
Um, so I introduced you before you came on the in the room by saying we're working on a little project this summer, um, and so that project is a sailing tour of the Philadelphia area. And why don't you take it away from there and tell folks a little bit about it?
Well, one of the things I do as an illegitimate actor is I have a pirate character that comes up a lot, and you have a boat. So we're working on building a history tour of the Delaware. I'll be doing it in character as Calico Jack because it's, very easy to just slip into and out of that persona. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the history of Philadelphia, the history of the river, with a specific focus for some stories that aren't told as much as they should be. Um, Stories, citizens of color, native stories, stuff that people should have learned in school.
Should have learned in school. So the reason why I thought it specifically why think it's cool um, to focus on stories of people of color and native experiences is because um, like so I know a lot of folks in the history tour community. Um, but I do too. A lot of actors in Philadelphia also like double up or have day jobs as history tour givers. And the funny thing to me is that I've heard from more than one person that that when they give accurate information, accurate history, that they get argued with by certain folks coming into town, like looking for like the uh, very nationalistic version of U.S. history, I guess. So I thought it would be cool to present the real history of Philadelphia from the waterfront perspective and talk a little bit about things like the Underground Railroad and how Philadelphia was actually the like Grand Central Station of the Underground Railroad, and talk a little bit about how native folks and European folks interacted around here.
Yeah, I only learned a few years ago that Delaware is not a native term.
Yeah.
There were a Delaware people after, I think, Marquis de la Warre, where they basically renamed themselves in fear of him.
Yep.
So that's, and like I never knew that. I never knew that. I learned that like 2 years ago. And I still can't believe that like such a like now every time I hear that word, I'm kind of reminded of the inherent like terror of it. And it comes up a lot.
Yeah.
It's a pretty prominent feature geographically speaking.
There are some native words that we still use in the Philadelphia region. Passyunk is one. Schuylkill. I'm trying to remember some of the others. But yeah, yeah, Delaware is not a native word. Um, I, I was gonna look up this thing while we're talking. Um,
I keep forgetting to actually practice and learn the actual name of the river. I know it's river where catfish can be found is the meaning of it.
and what's the Passyunk is where we all meet or something like that, or the waters where we meet. I forget.
Oh, I've never heard that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I have to well, here's white people aren't good at naming things. Those are so much better names
Right.
for places. Like we called corn, which is it's not a name. It literally means any grain that bears fruit. Wheat is a corn, rye
Mm-hmm.
is a corn. Sahara means desert. We're just really bad at naming things. And that's when we don't just name it after ourselves and like friends of ours.
Yeah, well, I mean, because, like 90% of the names of stuff uh, in the area has to do with either, like a ruler in England or somewhere else um, in Europe. Um, I'm gonna paste this to you in the chat, but there's a YouTube series called Franklin. It's by a local player of a video game called City Skylines, and in City Skylines you can build realistic simulations of cities, and in like God mode you can build them however and like so that they actually work exactly like the real city does. Um,
Oh wow.
and he starts basically with the native history of the area, and then goes on from there, and talks about basically the development of Philadelphia from beginning till now, over the course of this series, and it's pretty interesting to me. Anyway, but yeah,
That sounds awesome. Thank you.
yeah. Um, I'll paste the link to Meg as well. Um, but yeah, so you can, if you watch the series a little bit, you can see some of the native names, that for and where we got the native names, where we got the names for some of the neighborhoods, stuff like that. There's interesting uh, bit where he starts with like the villages that were founded, before Europeans showed up, and like where they were, and you can like it's suddenly very clear where a lot of stuff came from, and why we have that kind of stuff there now. Uh,
I just put two and two together. Is that why Philadelphia has a center city and not a downtown?
mm,
Because there used to be a village called Center City right there.
no,
No?
no,
Oh.
no. I'm trying to get to the segment. There's a segment where he basically goes through all of the towns that used to be here, and I'm trying to get to that segment, but I'm having a hard time finding it. At any rate, it's a little dense, and a little slowly paced, but it can be interesting if like history and urban planning is interesting to you. He's a big urban planning guy, and his podcast is focused on using mass transit and stuff like that. Stuff that we don't actually do well.
Oh, like as an urban planner, they maybe have the perspective that we should plan our urban areas
Yeah,
so that
or
they're
figure out
livable.
how to get people from place to place, and also provide them things like healthcare, food, housing, water. Um, this is a good moment to talk about President Obama's. And first thing I'd like to talk about with President Obama, his title is still president, folks. Still President Obama.
We,
You don't get former unless you're being disrespectful to the president or the presidency. Like that's actually not anywhere in the identification. His title is officially still President Obama.
oh, I thought I was mistaken. I had the assumption that you weren't ever supposed to call a non-serving president.
Nope, once a president serves as president, that remains their title unless they are elected to or provided a new title by another position. And they can still
That's
call themselves president if they want.
I mean, on it honestly, there's only one former president that annoys me when they're called president. For the most part, I'm like, well, I understand why people want to still use the title.
Hmm.
Um,
So,
but yeah, I mean that makes more logical sense because it's weird not calling a former president president.
right.
Just
And it annoys me because, like, during the entirety of the Obama administration, the news was always like Obama, not President Obama, not Mr. Obama, but just using his last name on its own,
mm,
which is proper when you're saying something like the Obama administration, but just to say Obama did such and such today, that's not properly addressing the president, and it's disrespect. And I think that disrespect is endemic to the. I mean, I would say it's endemic to his blackness, but I've been accused of being too sensitive about race issues before, so I don't know.
I don't know. We are living in a white supremacist society that keeps saying it's not a white supremacist society. So it sounds like a lot of people aren't looking critically at the world
Yeah,
when they give you that criticism.
yeah. So, anyway, the tweet that I retweeted by Jordan Grimes um, starts with former U.S. President Barack based Obama, which I am amused by throwing the term based as his nickname in the middle. But President Obama.
Okay,
Um,
so this is embarrassing. I think I missed based. What does based mean?
so based is a term that's mostly come up in the Twitter sphere by meaning uh, really proactive and uh, linked to populism. So like communism and socialism proponents, and folks that are proposing things that would be very good for the population and also are popular are based. Um, at least that's my understanding of the term. I could be wrong.
Okay, so like they're shortening fact based or
Um, so for instance,
sorry,
when
that's a dig
yeah when
because I'm guessing it's used pejoratively.
it's usually used as a supportive, like a
Okay.
positive. So like when when what's our Lieutenant Fetterman posts stuff in response to Dr. Oz tweets, people often call him based, that kind of thing. So,
Okay.
you know, like powerful, rooted, but also, popular.
Oh, like having a strong base.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, okay. I
Um,
I guess I still don't understand why we have that term, but like, all right. I there's lots of words I view as like superfluous, but
and I one thing I've noticed is that, especially when I have your personality in mind, I use a lot more of my vocabulary than like I was typing up some of the stuff for the tours. And I'm like, wait, I'm going off on one of my vocabulary rants here. Um, anyway, yeah,
sorry, I love words
I
so
I do
much.
too, and I have a really large vocabulary because my mom was very particular about English and my understanding of it. So, um,
Yeah, I'm sure you've been complimented on being well spoken.
yes, I have been complimented on being well spoken. These ribs think I'm well spoken. Um, that's a
That one,
that
that one, that comment one.
this is a reference, by the way, for those who don't follow me on social media on Facebook, and who are friends of mine on Facebook, because I think I only posted that to friends, because most of the joke stuff I post only to friends. Um, there was a photo of some really gray
They
ribs.
looked boiled.
Yeah, they looked boiled and then dusted with paprika, I guess. Maybe.
I would, if I had to guess, it'd be salt and pepper blend, just because that's as exotic as a spice as it looks like it's gonna get.
um, dusted with something. Maybe some red pepper, but it did not look appetizing is the point, I think. Um, and the it was a tweet, and somebody was like, these look really good, and then and somebody had quote tweeted it to say, um, I forget what the original one was, but all the quote tweets were basically roasting the picture.
These ribs stormed the Capitol on January
Yeah,
6th.
yeah. There you go. That's a good one. Yeah. Also relevant topic. But yeah, mine was these ribs think I'm very well spoken. Um, these
And and don't get me wrong, I'm half Irish. I have nothing against boiling meat.
you just don't.
I can see where people might have a problem with boiling meat, but I don't. But that's just not
There
ribs.
are some meats that are designed to be boiled.
Yes.
There are some meats that are designed to be stuffed into other meats or meat casings and then boiled. And then there are some meats that are designed to be put over fire or put near fire and engulfed in smoke for a long time, um, and not really a high temperature. And those would be things like ribs.
I like how you described it so that if the person who made those ribs overheard it, they would like actually get a clue of how ribs are prepared.
I like making food and I like making good food, and I hope that one day that person learns how to make ribs because they did not.
I mean, I hope they give up on ribs.
Yeah, yeah. The those ribs are probably part of the planning committees in urban areas in liberal communities. um, so
Those ribs just don't understand why everyone's so upset right now.
right. The quote was President Obama said the problems found in some of the major cities like Chicago in the U.S. are the result of government policy and zoning decisions. This is an example of where, and I'm going to break into an Obama imitation here, but I don't know why I always hear it in his
I'm
voice.
here for it.
This is an example of where it's not just a lack of funding for affordable housing, he said. Frankly, some very well-intentioned laws and regulations at the local level, often generated from the left and from my own party, sometimes are inhibiting the creation of affordable housing, empowering NIMBY attitudes, and make it very difficult to integrate communities and allow people to live close to where they work. The most liberal communities in the country aren't that liberal when it comes to affordable housing. So yeah, those ribs are part of the zoning committee here in Philadelphia and other places. Yeah, we talked a little bit last week. I don't know if you saw the show last week, but we talked a little bit last week about the Paramount Parks Commission, which is now Parks and Rec, and the goals of the president of the Fairmount Parks Commission, who comes from the recreation side, and like her basis of doing things is structured activities. So things like tennis courts and soccer fields make more sense in her view than something like an open field with hiking paths.
Right, because you can quantify the use easier. Like, you don't have to be observing the use to know if it's having an impact. Like, I can see the appeal from like a spreadsheet perspective.
That's a good way of putting it, actually.
I mean, it is missing a lot of like, I mean, especially when we're in a world where there's so few places that you could just exist without spending money.
So here, this is an interesting thought. I don't know the science here. I've not seen any studies, and to be quite frank, I haven't actually looked for any studies on this subject since last week. Been really busy, but I think it would be interesting to find out if there is a study of what kind of space is more friendly to the social upbringing of youth and teens, whether it's a structured space and participatory things like sports, or if it's unstructured space that they can explore at their own pace, but maybe exploring individually or in groups. And what effect those disparate types of use have on a growing mind. One of the things that we always say, you know, like in violence prevention is we need to provide opportunities for youth to participate in things, to do things other than criminal activity, other than other than school, other than criminal activity. So and provide them opportunities, but also provide them opportunities to see people doing things that are like them. Representation mattering. There's,
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And I mean, I definitely don't, like, my gut says that it's not either or. Like, knowing that peer groups are a bigger influence on the development of a child than their own parents. Like, it is going to depend entirely on who they're hanging out with. Like, some kids and some groups do better with like teamwork and practices and all of that. I I would not have done well in that environment. But if there'd been an area for me to obscure,
Abscond?
I was gonna say explore, and I think abscond at the same time.
Absplore?
Yeah, if I could have absclored,
Yeah.
then like that would have benefited me a lot more than uh the time I struck out in T-ball.
I really liked my the variety of I think you're right. I think that the variety is key there because when I was a kid, not only did I have, like huge one of the for a period of like 4 or 5 years, I lived on this farm that the back of the farm was directly abutting um, a national forest, a national pine forest in the mountains of North Carolina. So I would spend like 10, 12 hours in the summer just walking around the forest by myself because I wasn't going to get in trouble, was my parents thinking, and I would be home, eventually. um, uh, and so, I would spend many, many hours just walking around the farm or the forest by myself. Um, at the same time, there was a period when I lived in Netcong, New Jersey, which is very small. It is relatively verdant, but it's a very small town. And I participated in the Pee Wee Football League, so I did both. Um, and then I also had the kind of experience um, where you're paired off with an adult and doing what they're doing. My grandparents, when I spent time with my grandparents, I would be spending time with one or the other of them. And my grandfather was always fixing our boat or fishing or working, and my grandmother was always cleaning the house and taught me how to press shirts and sew on buttons and stuff like that. I think all of those experiences are kind of important. It's and I think the lack of variety of experience is possibly one of the problems leading to violence in Philadelphia. I think that we could lower the amount of violence if we were able to provide a good variety of experiences for youth and young adults.
I mean, like my experience growing up in a very nondescript suburb with nothing that interesting in walking distance is that I just watched television and read books. Like that's the entirety of my childhood. So like I can't help but think there are some good reasons to do this other than the reduction of violence. It seems like the least we can do as a society is provide these possibilities for our youth, but I also realize that that's not a big motivator for, say, our government.
Yeah, getting the government to do anything, you have to speak to, won't you think of the children?
Right, but you can't just be like, hey, let's give kids a good life. Like that's not
Right.
enough.
It's not specific enough.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
it's
like,
you have to make up a threat that you have. Oh, but there's a monster that eats children.
right. Krampus is coming for your children unless they have sports to participate in.
Human trafficking.
Right.
I'm not saying it's mostly made up, but if you look at the statistics, then if you look at the estimated number of human trafficking, then every child in the world has been trafficked.
Right. Right. Um,
None of them are where they should be.
which I mean that could easily bring us to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh,
Um,
sorry.
so I wanna talk about something sort of non-controversial slash controversial, but specifically having to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene, but not anything that you would normally, I suppose, think of, unless you've seen a particular picture of Marjorie Taylor Greene's feet. Um, this
I I can tell you that I have not.
You have not seen this picture. Okay. I'm going to share it with you. And so I, I was having this conversation, um, and I want to like be like folks. Some of the folks I've had this conversation with, like have that have been part of these conversations have been like, well, um, there's legitimate reasons for her feet to look slightly odd, etc., etc. You
I'm
shouldn't
so scared to look at this
you
picture.
shouldn't you shouldn't make fun of her for her feet. There's hundreds of thousands of things that she's legitimately done that are super awful. Yet at the same time, this picture of her feet exists, and I can't. I don't know. I just. How do you rise above? Like I don't know how to be. If somebody's truly awful, how do you protect? How do you? Mm,
No, it's tough because, I feel like we hit this with I feel like a lot of institutions hit this with Ted Cruz,
mm,
where there's so much to make fun of. Uh and he's such and they're both such just deplorable people that it's sometimes it's easy to lose thread of where the line is,
right.
where you're maybe making fun of them in an objectively or potentially unfair way. But when they're so awful,
Right.
don't they deserve it?
Right. When a person is that awful,
Yeah, like there's a certain level of just horribleness.
or we're starting to sound like Lemony Snicket, but yeah, there is. I mean, when you threaten the lives of trans people, literally calling for people armed with guns to object to the lives of trans people with their guns, object to the lives of immigrants with their guns. Like, what exactly are you trying to say? Because sure sounds a lot like you're calling for death squads. And
Against children.
yeah, I'm not sure, but like me making fun of your feet isn't as awful as that. And also, I'm not sure like I can avoid making fun of your feet now because it's just like it's easier and something more universal than pointing out the awfulness of your position on gun rights.
Right. And it's also MTG, which is I love that uh abbreviation, because every once in a while people will be talking about her and I think they're talking about Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, me too.
And just like that's just a nicer thing to think about. Also, totally unrelated, it's worth bringing up that I am on a Magic card.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. You're famous.
And it's true. I am.
Wow.
I'm kind of a big deal.
Wow. You're on a Japanese magic card only or
Oh no, I have the
English
I have the
version?
English one too.
Ah.
because it's not a very like valuable one, so it was really
Easy to
easy to get
get.
the limited edition copies.
Oh,
I'm not on like a famous Magic card, but I'm on
I
a Magic
mean,
card. I'm proud
so I
enough.
mean, if crypto was still a thing, we could make like Cubby coin.
But we wouldn't.
Why not? I mean, it could be a super unvaluable coin, just like, all of them.
You know what? Screw crypto. I want to make Cubby coin, and I'm just gonna hand draw them out of construction paper
I
and
think that's
crayons.
actually more valuable than actual crypto.
Well, you can actually use it for something.
Right.
I mean, and it's not MTG's fault that their feet were drawn by a lazy 12-year-old.
Um,
But it's also like at a certain point when like she spends so much of her time just trying to hurt people who don't deserve it, and she deserves it. Like, she deserves no comfort. She deserves no sympathy. Like, the last night, I found out that somebody posted both sides of Clarence Thomas's credit card
all of
on
the credit
TikTok.
cards of all of the Supreme Court justices who are of the six that voted to overturn Roe have been published and their home addresses.
I love it. I
I
love that
do.
so much.
I think, and it goes directly to the point of the ruling, and is I think a valuable use of freedom of speech. In their ruling overturning Roe, they basically said the right to privacy doesn't exist. Okay,
Perfect.
call. I call your bluff. Here's your privacy, and it doesn't exist. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly correct.
And like, it's also when you have trespassed against humanity, you deserve no comfort.
Right. Yeah, there was the whole incident where somebody was mean to what was the former guy's press secretary?
Oh, he had so many.
No, the woman who wore very heavy eyeshadow all the time.
No, Huckabee Sanders?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So Sarah
Damn
Huckabee
it.
Sanders.
I wish I didn't know the answer to
There,
that.
there was there was two incidents. One, the joke, which was objectively funny and not about not unlike jokes about Marjorie Taylor Greene's feet. This joke was completely appropriate, which was the one she applies ashes from uh, I forget the exact joke. Ashes from somebody. Um, Basically dead people as her eyeshadow. Um, but
Yeah, that's fair.
yeah, that does not, and the joke was not against her application of makeup. The makeup was, according to the joke, good. The premise of the joke was just what she uses as eyeshadow, not. I'm gonna look this joke up now because I'm butchering it. Anyway, but that was funny. Michelle Wolf was the one, and then
Oh,
and
she's
it,
good.
it resulted in a huge. Did that joke goes too far? Um, uh, what is the joke? Perfect smoky eye. Yeah. Um,
Oh, that's even better.
yeah. Yeah, like it was a really well written joke. Like it was written specifically to not be offensive, but also be hilariously offensive at the same time. I actually really like Sarah, Wolf said, glancing at Sanders, who sat in Trump's vacated head table spot. I think she's very resourceful, but she burns facts and then she uses the ash to create perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it, maybe it's lies. It's probably lies. Like, it's such, like, I don't know how long Michelle Wolf spent on that joke, but it's a really well written joke. Like, it's really, like, thought about from multiple angles, and like the more you dissect it, the better it gets. And I'm like, whereas like jokes about MTG's feet aren't that funny, that's a really funny joke, and doesn't cross any lines. Anyway, I wanted to. The Supreme Court's the last thing I wanted to talk about was the Supreme Court's made several rulings in the past couple of days that are, I mean, to be perfectly honest, they could be impeached. Some of the opinions could lead to impeachment because they directly lied to Congress, and if you are called in front of Congress to testify, and then you say something like Roe v. Wade is settled law, and then you write an opinion as a jurist that counters that and says that Roe v. Wade has no basis in the history of the body of law of the United States, you committed perjury one way or the other. Either you committed perjury when you were speaking to Congress, or you're perjuring yourself in your opinion. And I
Yeah, at this point, I'm even wondering, does Kavanaugh even love calendars?
or beer. I mean,
Beer.
does he
Well,
really?
I don't have any doubt about that.
I mean, he has. There's evidence for his love of calendars. He's got historic calendars, but is there evidence for him drinking beer?
I still don't understand how he got approved.
No clue.
I've been on street corners with guys asking me for money who have made more coherent sense.
Yeah.
Actually, all of them.
Yeah, they usually make pretty good coherent sense, because when you're asking for money, you usually try to communicate a story that will elicit a response.
Yeah, and also that is exploiting a stereotype about a downtrodden person, and I regret that comment inherently. I'm gonna say, you know what? I have been institutionalized, and I would say that most of the people in group seemed to be more stable and well-adjusted than he did.
I would say I've had conversations with well-spoken dogs who made more sense than Brett Kavanaugh's testimony.
Yeah, and they can't figure out who the good boy is.
Right, no. Yeah.
Which is weird.
Or where their tail is. Like, that's, like, you can't figure out where one of your own appendages is? Come on, dude. Like, just put it together.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Feeling so high and mighty, James? Where's your tail?
It's vestigial.
That sounds like a fancy word for you don't know where it is. I haven't been able to find my tail.
So the Supreme Court ruled. All these headlines bother me, and I'm sorry I'm running over time for you and for folks that are watching. But I just want to cover this one more thing. All the headlines I've read: Supreme Court rules that high school football coach can pray at 50-yard line, or something along those lines. The case was not about the coach praying at the 50-yard line. There's plenty of coaches, players, etc. that pray at the 50-yard line of games.
Right.
um, and do so without comment or incident. The issue was, and the reason he was fired from his job as a teacher and coach, was that several students accused him via the school board of pressuring them to join the prayer or they would lose time on the field. Now, in communities like the one that this coach comes from, high school sports, especially high school football, are a huge deal. It is a path into college. It is a pathway into a successful life. And I don't know what community every one of my audience members comes from, or you come from, Cubby. You said a suburb, but I think every person who's been through high school understands that the school system and your parents will find something that they think you're good at and pressure you to do it even better because you won't make it to college. And then, especially now and for the past 40 years or so, getting to college is like, if you don't get to college, you're a useless idiot or something. I don't know. I didn't do much college
Right.
myself. I did 2 years. I think I'm a pretty smart person, but hey, maybe I'm really an idiot. It's fine, but
That seems pretty doubtful. But usually the narrative is if you don't go to college, you're a useless idiot. And if you have debt from college, you're a useless idiot.
right,
Why did you go to college? You should have learned a trade.
right, right. So, but in these rural communities, it's either work for the factory, which doesn't exist anymore because they've all been shipped overseas. Literally, the equipment has been shipped overseas. That's why manufacturing doesn't exist in the United States and it's never coming back. Um, or you go to college and get out of town. And so there's these huge pressures to qualify for college in any way you can. Of course, there aren't enough slots in all colleges in the United States to take every secondary school student into a slot in college. And prices keep increasing, and not everybody has enough money. There's not enough money in the middle class, and there's definitely not enough money in the lower class to send every secondary student to a college. So the playing football is the path to college for most of these students. And playing football isn't enough. You have to play football and you have to have a lot of time on the field because college scouts can appear at any game and they determine who they want to recruit to their college and provide scholarships for, in part based on how much time you have on the field. So this is a big deal.
Kind of a big deal.
Right. And if you lose minutes on the field, well, I'm going to do anything I can to not lose minutes on the field, right? It's my entire future. I don't
Yeah.
care if I don't believe in Christianity or whatever prayer that the coach is saying. I'm just going to go on the field and pretend to pray with him because then I will get my minutes on the field. And that's the issue. That's the issue that they were ruling on, though they changed it to a free speech issue. Which it
Oh
was
yeah,
not.
the judgment is written, it's a fantasy.
Yeah,
It lies so egregiously that the dissenting opinion includes a photograph that destroys Gorsuch's
right, right,
arguments in favor of the defendant.
right.
It's absolutely unsupportable, and I mean, we have a rogue court.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
I don't know what will become of the future, especially the near future. I said this online the other day. I was accused of having an agenda in an argument over something that I completely didn't care about, but I was accused of having an agenda. And it's true, I do have an agenda. I have an agenda that is not letting my daughter grow up with the same obstacles that I faced. She looks a lot like me. She has a tan skin like me. She has dark hair. She's going to face obstacles just because people will be instantly able to identify her as not part of the European hegemony. And she has additional obstacles that have now been placed in her way by this quote unquote Supreme Court of the United States. And so, yes, I do have an agenda. And that agenda is to make sure that these things don't happen or get overturned by the time that they would affect her. So.
I mean, that's anyone who doesn't have that agenda shouldn't be saying anything. Like, if what, because what's the opposing agenda too? Make sure billionaires get richer?
Make sure billionaires get richer and make sure guys keep control over everything.
Oh yeah, and also like in case white hetero fragility.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's why they need control over everything because otherwise,
They'll feel bad.
they'll feel bad. And
Yeah, we
can't
can't
we can't have that.
can't have that. Gosh.
Gosh, can't make white guys feel bad. Please.
Yeah,
Please.
like, you know what agendas are good for?
Planning things?
Yeah, getting literally anything done.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have an agenda, what are you doing? You're just flailing.
You're just treading water. Yeah. So, yeah, I have an agenda. I have an agenda with everything that I do, whether it's this broadcast or things that I work on. I I know we're way over time, but I
Well, Twitch isn't gonna shut down the
no,
show.
no, I've broadcast for like 8 hours straight before. No, 24 hours straight before. Anyway,
Whoa.
the I was asked one time by one of a producer I work with, and he's like, like, why do you take on certain things and then other things you don't like? And I'm like, because I have to actually believe in the people I'm working for, because if I don't, then I don't want to help them in any sort of way. I'm not going to help them build a platform. I'm not going to help them get their message out. I'm pretty selective and I mean, I'm not to brag. I feel like I'm pretty good at what I do. So,
I mean, we are literally on your show. I feel like you should brag a little. I want to hear the bragging version of that statement.
I feel like I'm pretty good at what I do.
All right.
So, and other people pay me for being good at it. And so, if I turn down your project, there's probably a reason why. It's probably because I don't like it.
I mean, that seemed all very reasonable and provable.
Yeah.
I don't know if that counts as a braggadocio, but I also am certainly not going to say you don't know what you're doing.
Oh, I appreciate it.
I don't think I've ever seen you in a situation where you didn't know what you were doing.
I try not to get there because when I'm in situations where I don't know what I'm doing, I feel like I have to learn real quick or die.
Yeah, I've seen you in a variety of very technical situations, so that's not a light comment that I've never seen you not knowing what you're doing.
I appreciate it.
Like, I'm sure people can say that about me,
Yeah.
but not if they've spent time with me.
Yeah, but the thing I like about you is even you handle it different. But even when you don't know what you're doing, it feels like you're going with the flow anyway.
That is literally all I do. I never know what I'm doing. I've just gotten pretty good at going with the flow.
I I don't always know what I'm doing, but I try not to flip out when I don't. That's
Mm.
that's the whole tactic there. Um, and anyway,
I
and
never
that's
know what I'm doing, and I am trying not to flip out.
and bringing it back to sailing, that is sailing in a nutshell.
Yeah, it is good. It's good to have at least one person on the boat that knows how to not get everyone killed.
But also sailing for the person that knows what they're doing is a matter of going with the flow and uh, feeling your way from moment to moment, problem solving each moment to the next one to make sure that you don't all die.
Ooh. Okay, that was kind of a braggy way of putting it. I like
All
that.
right.
Impossible to argue with still, but like I like that.
All right. I appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you for being my guest today. Thank you for the folks that have been watching online. I really appreciate it. And do you have any last thoughts for the audience? Any things that you'd like to say to the folks who watch this now or in replay?
Um, Good luck out there.
Good luck. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not feeling a lot of hope these days. So I guess just do the best that you can, everyone.
Yeah.
On the bright side, it's not for much longer.
Only 30, 40 years.
I mean, yeah, it depends on what we're talking about because it feels like we've got 2 years left on American democracy.
Oh, I'm thinking like
Democracy.
fall of Rome timeline. We might have 30 or 40 years
Oh,
left.
because I'm like 40 years also feels like the amount of time the human species has left.
Oh, okay. But I mean, it may be. Who knows?
Yeah, but it's not looking good.
Um, and on that somber note, I'm gonna go to a one up me. Thank you. Oh, you had one other thing to promote, which is you're doing what is that called at Independence Seaport Museum?
Oh, the Pirate Rum Challenge.
Yeah, you're doing the Pirate Rum Challenge. When is that through?
That is Thursday through Friday, 6 to 9 every weekend now through Labor Day weekend. And it is a variety of challenges and entertainments hosted by amusing pirates, where basically we entertain you for a little while and we make you walk the plank. It's at the Independence Seaport Museum. It's $15, and that includes your first drink. It's 21 plus.
Nice.
Yeah. Every once in a while, like there's some kids in PPL, and we're like, I get worried that they're going to see the pirates and be like, oh, it's a pirate thing. Let's bring the kids. And it's like, well,
Well,
here's the thing. Your kid probably can't hold their liquor.
maybe under 5.
Yeah, under 5 should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to object. If the kid's just going to sleep,
Yeah.
then... But I don't know what the official policy is on babies.
I don't know either. I've brought Ashlyn to pretty much everywhere, and nobody's ever complained, except one client. One client complained, but
Oh yeah, that was an a-hole. I remember you posting about that.
I mean, she was in potato mode. Who's gonna complain about a potato?
It's a cute little baby. Like seriously, get over yourself.
Anyway, all right, I gotta go. I gotta go work on the boat. I'm gonna transition to just a one up of me to talk us out. And so thank you for being my guest today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for hosting our tours, and I hope to see you at the Pirate Rum Challenge. If I get a free Thursday, Friday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Yep. And Fridays we have the music group Chased Treasure there as well.
Nice.
They're really good at salty songs and sweet harmonies.
And
oh, we have a special guest.
The audience can't see her, but yeah, Dolly is regularly a special guest on the show.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. I'd love to be back sometime, and thank you again for your patience. I'm sorry I got here a little late.
Absolutely, no problem. And also, anytime you want to join, the link is always the same. If you see a topic that you'd like to talk about coming up, then just join the Zoom. All right. All right, thanks, Cubby. I will talk to you soon. Thanks to my audience. I really appreciate you guys sticking around, watching the show, and you could help us out a lot. We could increase viewership quite a bit. So if you wouldn't mind, just post the link to this live stream on your social medias. You can post the YouTube link, the Facebook link. We're also on Twitch, we're on Twitter, and we're on Mob Crush. So any of those links will work. All of them will work better. But yeah, please feel free to post it around. Get your friends to watch. If you see anything of interest to one of your friends, feel free to link to a specific moment in the show, or, you know, whatever you think folks would be interested in. And tune in again next week. I believe we'll have Kelly McCon. Let me double check my schedule here. Yeah, we'll have Kelly McCon. She'll be on the show talking about stuff. And amongst other things, she's a great comedian and she's a great masseuse. So hopefully we can talk to her about both of those things. So enjoy the rest of your week, folks. I hope it goes well, and we'll see you again next week.